All right. Hello, everybody on the internets, on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, and Mixer. And we are doing one last episode. So, last one that we did, the streaming service wasn't working. So, it kind of started off wrong and continued that way throughout. So I thought it'd be better to redo that specific episode. So this is realistically episode 2000 or episode 2000, episode number 11. And also it's the conclusion to this season. And we will pick up again in April. And we'll start on a new project. So this one's going to finish off the spinner, and it's going to be covering that. Also, I have some good learnings from what happened last time, so I'll be sharing those with you as well. But before we get started, real quick, I just want to make sure that everything is working on the different chat channels. The different streaming channels. So let's see here. It looks like some of you have responded, which is great. Looks like YouTube is doing good. Looks like Twitch is doing good. We just need somebody from Facebook and somebody from Mixer to chime in, and then we would be good to go. There's plenty of people on, so we should be ready to go here in a couple of seconds. So while we are getting those responses, I'll just go ahead and do a quick summary of what's been going on. So this is on ZBrush Live, and that's kind of the home channel, and it's broadcast to 4 other channels. And looks like if you go to ZBrush Live or pixologic.com/ZBrush Live, and you go to presenters, you will find me in there. So if you just go to presenters, you can see there's a bunch of us that do this stream. And so I'm down here. And if you click on my information here, you can scroll down and you can see that these are all the different episodes that we've been going through. So there's this season right here, which is about 10 episodes. Today we'll do 12 or 11, actually, technically 11. And also, if you want to watch the previous season where we did this robot, you can do that as well. And you can see here that there's a page too that you can go to actually see that. Okay, and if you want to find me for work reasons or to send questions or whatever, my website is Kermaco.com. It is in severe need of an update, and hopefully I'll be doing that while I have some time coming up. And here you can see some of my work, so you can see all the mechs that I've done, vehicles, and this was the spinner that I did before this session, and then soon, of course, you'll see the new one with all the renders we're going to do, some maybe today and some soon. Okay, so that's where you find out information about who I am, and to contact me, there's an About and Services, which talks about who I am, and then if you scroll down, I think to the bottom, you can subscribe to the email address. And is there a contact area? There should be a contact area as well. Right here, contact. And if you click on that, you can go in and email me. So if you just click on this button, it'll launch your email client and populate my email address. Or you can also click on this envelope over here to get a hold of me. So if you need to get a hold of me within this time frame, you're not watching this live, this would be the best way to contact me. All right. Also, a quick advertising here. I just released a new workshop on the Gnomon workshop, which is modeling and texturing and everything this mech from 0 to where we are. So I start out with Oculus Medium and do about 20 of these. And then we pick parts of them and develop them further into the final mech. So a bunch of different chapters. I haven't really calculated the hours, but it's a long one, and you can go in here and either watch the specific parts or you can watch the whole thing. And so this is available on the Gnomon workshop. And so this was the final render from the workshop, but I continued to work on this, and which brings me to my next image here, which is my Instagram. So if you go to my Instagram, and you can get to it either from going to my webpage and clicking on the Instagram button, or it's instagram.com/Kermaco. And if you go to that, you will see that my images here are updated based on newer things. So this was a render of the mech that's not in the video in the workshop. I just did that afterwards. This of course is in the workshop, and then the other day I just had some time and I did a render of it over here, which is basically just the same exact mech, but I used some other props from Megascans, and also added the firing here from different clip art, and also I did some Photoshop editing on it. So make sure you always kind of keep up with my work if you're interested by going to my Instagram. That's the most current. And if you want to find out more about me, you can find out more about it here. And so we are going to be completing the spinner today. So and let's go ahead and go into ZBrush here. So this is the spinner right here, and what you saw earlier in Keyshot was this drone that we have, and I'm going to isolate the drone, and I'll start out with talking about the drone a little bit because it speeds things up, and also I want to talk about a few things. So here the drone itself is just one subtool, okay? So it's just a single subtool. We sculpted this, most of it on the stream. I went in and added some other things, just some alphas and whatnot, and also drew in some cut lines for it. Afterwards, I added these two scoops over here. So you can see here in the wireframe that it's just all one big model. And it's subdivided. I think it's about, let's see how many polys this thing is. It's not giving me the specific polys for it. So let me see here. Here we go. It looks like it's about 317,000 polys, so it's not that bad. It's pretty dense, but it's not that bad. And also notice that it's got multiple subdivision levels, so it's got about 6 subdivision levels, and this is what it looks like just as a low subdiv model. And this is just zero meshed, so I sculpted it and then zero meshed it. And then as we add different subdivision levels, it comes to this. And I didn't UV this, so I didn't want to UV it. Instead of UVing it, what I did was I poly painted it. So, and I poly painted it with a specific trick, and this is a good one to know. And the way you do that is if you go to paint, so if you go to your paint brush right here, notice here it says RGB, right? So Z-add and Z-sub are off. Right. By the way, we haven't heard anybody from Facebook. You guys can hear me okay on Facebook or on Mixer. Just chime in, please. That would be great. So here, notice that Z-add and Z-sub are off for this brush, but RGB is on. So basically that means you can paint in a color. So here, if I choose a different color, I can paint in that color. Also, notice here that there is another button called mRGB, right? So if you click on mRGB, that means you'll be coloring in the color as well as a material. Or you can just click on M for material here, and then you'll be coloring with just a material. And what I mean by that is, let's say we want to do something different here. What we want to do is this part right here. We want it to be a different material in Keyshot. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and go to material, and then you can just choose an arbitrary material, right? So from your materials here, you can choose any one that you want. It doesn't really matter. So here I'm going to pick some really weird one, like maybe this madcap metal. And then you just start painting. And notice here that you're painting the same color. I mean, you can change the color too and then just put it on mRGB. But as you're painting here, you're painting in that material, right? So I'm filling this area with the material like so. And again, the pixelation is because of the poly count. So if I want this to go away, let me make sure this is on the highest subdivision level. And it is, but I can divide it one more time. And let's go ahead and do that. It won't take too long. And notice here, as I'm painting, the pixels are a little bit smaller, right? And so I undo that subdivision 6 again, so we are fast. and just go in and paint the part here that you want to be the different material in Keyshot. Okay, so if you paint it this way, like that, right? And then if you kind of run outside the area that you're in, right? So here we kind of have a little bit of overlap. I'll just go back to the basic material, which is what we have, and resize my brush to a smaller size and just fix those parts, right? So it's pretty, you know, your kind of art fundamental skills come into play here, where you're just basically painting, and you can have symmetry on. I didn't turn it on for this one, but it doesn't matter. It's the same thing. So you can kind of go in and fine tune your painting, and there will be a little bit of spillover, and there will be some of this pixelation, but you can kind of fix that in post, so to speak, if you need to. Or if you want it to be really, really precise, then you can just always zoom in. You know, go back to whatever material that was. So here I'm just going to go ahead and go back to that material. I think it was this one right here, and just paint whatever you want back on. And then, you know, just by doing a little bit more of this work, you can at some point be done with it. And then once you're done and you send it over to Keyshot, okay, then you can assign a different Keyshot material to every single one of these things. So the model will come in, and here, let's go ahead and take a look at it in Keyshot. I think it's over here, right? So I will cancel this, unpause this, right? So you can see here my model. I'll go to the scene here, and there is the drone, and you can see that there is a different kind of a aesthetic to each one of these, or different name that Keyshot gives to every single material here. So you can see here that I've chosen a few different materials for the different areas, and I've basically, you know, I can even choose a light material. So I just painted this a light material, and then, I painted this just a different material, and then just drag and dropped a light material from Keyshot into it. And so you can see here all the different things that are different materials here in ZBrush are coming across as different materials in Keyshot. I don't know how this got there, but we can quickly fix it. Looks like this is a different material as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this on mRGB and fix this part. Okay, so hopefully this is a good kind of thing to, Moises Bonilla, thank you very much for responding. And Modboy, thank you very much. Welcome aboard. The person with the Russian name, I'm sorry I can't read your name out, but welcome as well. Lux, hello. Javier, hello. And RN, hello as well. Okay, so now that I'm done painting this thing, I can just go ahead and turn on the external renderer here. So just go to here under render, and under external renderer, you just turn Keyshot on. And then when you click BPR, it will send this model to Keyshot, and it will break out all the different things that I've painted in different. And you can see here it's pretty ugly this way, but it doesn't matter because I'll be assigning different materials to it in Keyshot anyway. Okay. So another big thing that was kind of an issue last time when I did the one episode that we're not going to share. I'm going to do everything I did in here, hopefully without all the issues that we were having and all the waiting we had to do for things to load. So in that one, we had a problem where things were just not looking right. And that's because Keyshot likes things to be a certain scale. And real world scale is what everything needs to be in Keyshot. So another learning was to go ahead and make things the right scale. So here, I'll go ahead and bring the entire spinner back up. So there it is. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to make the spinner the size of a real car, more or less. So to do that, I just brought in one of my subtools here, and this is a scale subtool that I give my students. It's just a kind of a bunch of OBJ files that basically establish scale. So this here is a 6-foot man, right? So I basically said, okay, well, there's the guy standing up next to the car. Let's turn transparency on and choose the guy. So there he is, and what I did is I moved him so that he is on the ground, and I figured this is how tall this car is, right? So then basically what I did is I took this guy right here and I said set scene scale, and I basically typed in the numbers. Oh, by the way, I should mention that I'm using Scale Master, which is a very useful plugin for ZBrush. It's free and also available on the Pixologic website. You can go and get it, and it is priceless to scale things correctly in ZBrush. So you basically just set your scale, and then when you're done with that, there's one other plugin that you need to use. So I made sure that my car is, or the spinner is within some sort of a real world scale. So if this was to exist in the real world, about, just about what scale it would be. So I set that. And then the next thing I did, another plugin that I used. So instead of going ahead and clicking on the external renderer, Keyshot, and BPR, there's another one here called Keyshot Scale Sender or something like that. Yeah, Keyshot Scale Sender. And instead of clicking the BPR button, you click on Send Scale Tool to Keyshot, and what that will do is it will make sure that when it gets to Keyshot, it is the correct scale. So by using these two really cool plugins, my life became a lot easier. And then when I went into Keyshot, things looked a lot better. And we will see a lot of that today. Okay, so here we go. The first one again is, the second plugin is Keyshot Scale Sender, and the first one is the Scale Master. Okay, so these two, Scale Master and Keyshot Scale Sender. If you get these two plugins, it will make your Keyshot experience with ZBrush a lot better. Okay. So I'm not going to go ahead and click on the BPR button to send this into Keyshot, because it's going to take a long time to send everything to it. I actually have one that's pre-done, so we will be working on that. So this is basically the last of what we will be doing in ZBrush. But before I do that, I also wanted to show you some other things that I did here in ZBrush that really help with what I work on. So here, I broke everything out by folders. So I've got a folder for the exterior, a folder for the interior. I didn't put the drone in a folder. If I had different parts for the drone, I would have. But since I don't have different parts for it, I just left it alone in its own, kind of as its own subtool. And of course, I didn't create one for this person, but I do have a people group as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at these things. I'm going to hide this guy over here. And let's go ahead and look at, first of all, this is the whole thing, right? This is the whole spinner, right? And then I basically will go ahead and hide the drone. So this is what the spinner will look like without the drone. It's got this little scoop here, and if it's going really fast, there is something that inflates this so that it's basically flush, so it doesn't create an air current inside here, right? So this is what the profile of the car looks like, and I do have perspective on. I don't. Okay, good. And so this is what it looks like from the front, right? This is what it looks like from the top, like so, and this is what it looks like from the bottom. By the way, this project has been very, very useful and educational for me, and I learned so much doing this that next one I do, I will know so many things to do a little bit differently so that I'm more efficient, and also to get different types of shapes. Okay, so this is the bottom, right? So this is the exterior, so let's go ahead and hide the exterior. So if we hide the exterior, then we basically are left with the interior and the lights. Okay. Now the other thing to do that's very important is to rename all of your parts here. So notice here that I have exterior as a prefix, and then rear window mirror, and etc. So I basically have named every single part that I have, which is really nice. Because when you load it into Keyshot or you give it to another colleague or something like that, then they can work on these parts. So working in a team, you always have to name your parts, so it's always good to do it. And for that, I also want to mention this other plugin that I got that was really helpful in doing the renaming. And I think it's FJ Tools. Yeah, FJ Tools and naming. So FJ Tools is also a free plugin. It's not available on the Pixologic website, but it is available on the internet. And if you get it, it has this thing that add prefix, so you can add prefix to everything that's visible, or by folder or whatnot. So you can add a prefix, add a suffix, change the name, etc. So FJ Tools is super useful as well. I highly recommend you get it. So here on the exterior, notice that I also basically said what in here. So I've got a group for lights and a group for windows. So let's hide the windows here. So that's the windows hidden. And let's hide all the lights. So this is the interior of the car. And you can see here I did a little bit of modeling that wasn't in the, I'll turn perspective on because this looks a little bit wrong. So here I did a little bit of adding stuff that's not in the episodes, but it's basically, I've shown the process of how I do it. So basically I added the pilot, I added a different head, sculpted a little helmet, just very quick and simple, separated out the pieces of the chair, and put in these tubes from Vitaly's kit, and then put this one in. I think this is from Vitaly's kit as well, and some of the others from other kits that I showed. And this is what the bottom of the inside looks like. And all of these will show up a little bit in the spinner. So whatever is going to show up will show up. Now, one of the big learnings here that I had is that there's all this space between the driver and the door. And I was going to put some other instruments in here to kind of cover it up. But next time when I do a car, I will know to not have the space and have the door be closer to the driver. But here maybe it's a bit roomier, and maybe this is where he puts his stuff that he carries with him and whatnot. So we'll just kind of leave it at that. Okay, so this is the inside of the spinner. And Brian, you're saying everything is blurry? I can't understand what you're saying. Is it blurry? Is that what you're trying to say, or bluish? I can change the color, of course. Here I can change the color to something lighter, maybe here. Maybe that's better. And here I can change the background to a lighter color as well. Maybe not this light. Let's go ahead and make it about there. Here we go. And then let's make the background color that color as well. So maybe this is better. I don't know. Let me know, Brian, on Facebook. So here we go. Here is what the inside looks like again. And I did some panels for the front part here for the dashboard. So I kind of have an iPad-like thing here, kind of looking at the Tesla models and thinking that that would be something that would be cool. So I have that in here, but then that kind of maybe folds in, and there's some other instruments behind. I made some panels over here. And we can put instruments on there if we're going to do an internal shot, so we can do all sorts of fun stuff that way. Okay, so this is the internals of the car. And let me go ahead and hide that. And then basically I have the people, which basically is just this guy and his head. They're two separate pieces. And then I have a different one for the seats. So here are the seats. And I thought I'd do something else with these seats, and I may use them in a future project as well. Okay, so we have all these parts basically pretty much done. Hopefully you kind of have a good idea of what they are. And at this point, it'll be a good idea for you guys to ask me any questions about ZBrush, because after this, we are going to go out of ZBrush and spend the rest of the time in Keyshot. So I'll wait a few minutes. And because I know there's a little bit of a lag, and if we don't get any questions, we'll move on. So yeah, we got about 51 people on here, so somebody should have a question. All right. So is everything good on Facebook? Anybody on Facebook can please let me know if everything's looking okay. Okay, I'm not hearing anything, so I'm hoping everything is going well. All right, cool. So let's move on to Keyshot. So basically what I would do here is I would just go to the specific piece here and click on, go to the Keyshot sender and send it over to Keyshot. And what that will do is it will send it over and we will have it in Keyshot. So first I'll just do this one scene in Keyshot, right, which is just basically the drone. Right, and what I'll do here is I'll just start over from scratch, and that will give you kind of an idea of how to do this work. So here I'm just going to go ahead and click one material here. Just go ahead and go to plastic and go to, whoops. Let's go to hard plastic here and let's just choose rough. And I'm just going to go ahead and assign a rough gray plastic to the model because that's usually how it comes in anyway. So it comes in something like this. If you have poly paint, of course, the poly paint would have come over, but we don't really have poly paint. All what we have is just different materials, and so the materials come in as just one material here, right? So let's add this to the lights. I don't know what's going on here, but it seems like Keyshot is doing some thinking. Let me do this real quick. Sometimes yeah, I think Keyshot just kind of froze right now, so, or maybe it's thinking, so we'll just let it do its thing for a minute. And if it crashes, then we'll just restart it. Actually, here, I could probably end this session. Oh, all right, unknown error. Okay, so we're back. And there it is. Okay, so now we have our drone and we have all the different materials assigned to it. Let's see, is this bottom have a material assigned? Let's just assign this one to here as well. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and real quick here turn off the ground shadows so we can see the whole drone in its entirety. Okay, and I basically just loaded in a very simple HDR here, and we're looking at it this way. And what we're going to do now is just start assigning materials, right? So notice here when the ZBrush model got brought in, it just has these different items for each one of the areas, right? So here, I'll go ahead and start, okay, I want the nose to be black, so I just drag over a hard plastic black to it. And I want this to have some sort of a noise to it. I could have done this in ZBrush, but I can also do it in Keyshot. So I just want to add a little bit of surface noise to it, and the way to do that is just go to material here, and let's go ahead and choose that material. There it is. And go to its material graph. Let's bring that over. So here in the material graph for it, what I need to do is just add a material or a texture, and I'll add a 3D noise texture to it. So here, noise fractal. Let's add a fractal noise, and I'm going to add this to the bump. Okay, so there it is, and then I'm going to move this to the side here, and it's kind of barely visible, but I need to do some things to the noise here. The first thing I need to do is go into my material here and go to textures, go to bump, and make the bump a little bit, have it have more of a scale. So let's see what the scale would be if I went up like so. And I don't know why I'm not seeing it. Maybe it's under here. And there should be something that says bump height, which is over here. So let's go ahead and add a bit of a bump height so we can see it. So you can barely see a little bit of difference here. So I'm going to change my bump height. I'm just going to go to a full-on one. Let's see what that does. And then, so I can see something's going on, but I still don't see it clearly. So I think that has to do with the scale. So let's go ahead and go into that bump again and go into the scale of it. and start making it bigger. And now I can kind of see what I'm working with here. Let me take this out of the way so you guys can. Okay, you see here that it's created this surface, which is really extreme, and that's kind of what I wanted, because now I can just start making it more what I want. So I want the scale to be a lot smaller than this, maybe to about there, right? So you can kind of see that it adds this nice texture to the model. And the next thing I want to do here is go in and change the bump height. It's way too much at 1, so let's go for half of that. That's still too much, and let's go to maybe 0.25, a quarter of it. That looks much, much better. So you can kind of see that my surface has some sort of material here. I might even go down to 1.15, and that's perfect. So now I've got that. And the last thing I also want to do here is go to the material, and I want it to be a little bit shinier than what it is. Now notice that since what I had here, I don't know where my model went, so let's go ahead and center to fit models. Let's go ahead and take a look at it here. So you can see that you see this noise over here. This is because I used an alpha. It shows up if I'm this close, but it does not show up when I'm this far, right? So about here's where it shows up. And unless I have a close-up of this drone, I don't need to worry about that. And also notice here that the spillover from one material to the next is also showing up. And again, it shows up if I'm this close, but if I'm this far, it doesn't show up. So this is kind of a quick and dirty way to paint your model. And if you can also clean this up in Photoshop later on too, if you want to. So one more thing I want to do here is I want to change the material on here to be a little bit less rough. So I'm going to make it a little bit shinier like that. Okay, that's good. And then also the specular of it is, I want it to be a little bit darker than what it was. Okay, like maybe so. And I think this is good. So I'm kind of getting the look that I want for this. Okay, so I like this material, so I'm just going to copy it. Copy material. And then I'm going to paste it over here. Paste material. Okay, so now these have that same material, and then this back part here is going to have that material as well. Now notice here I didn't link them because I might want to color them differently. So I like the material, but I don't want the material to be exactly the same for all three of them, so that if I change one, the other ones will change as well. Okay. Moises, are you not hearing my voice on Facebook? I just want to make sure my voice is coming through because that's kind of an important thing. So here, for this one, for example, I can go and edit that material graph. And in that material graph down here, I don't want that bump, so I can just take it off like so. So I want the wings to be smooth like this. And then this back part can have the bump, it's fine, right? So now I can individually manipulate those, but if I'd link them together, I wouldn't be able to. And here I'm almost done. I just have to apply 2 more materials. So this bottom part here is going to be kind of a shiny material. And let's start out with shiny black. And I think that's exactly what I wanted. And then last but not least, there's this big part over here. And remember, I colored this part, but I didn't do it for this specific model, so it's not going to be different. But if I'd brought that one over, then I could actually assign a different material to this area as well. Okay, so here, Moises, if you are not hearing anything on Facebook, can you please let me know? It seems like there's some sort of an issue, but you're not telling me what it is, so I can't fix it. So if you could let me know what it is, then that would be great. Okay. Also here, what I'm going to do is change that environment color here to something darker, so we can. So this stands out a bit. That's good. Okay, and then I just want to add a material to this area. So I want to add a material that's kind of similar in color, so these kind of edges can kind of bleed into it. So here I'm just going to choose a plastic cloudy material, and I'm going to choose maybe this one right here. What color is that? Let me make this bigger so I can read it. Let's try this one. Okay, this one looks good. Oh, I had two different materials here too, so I'll do a different material for those. So now I added this cloudy material to it, and it looks okay. But I don't want it to be this cloudy, so what I could do here is go ahead and do a little bit of tweaking. So here I'm going to edit this material. And the transparency distance is 0.003, that's fine. The cloudiness is 0.5. I want to bump that up to 0.7. Let's see what that looks like. That's a little bit better. And then for these parts over here, I might choose a different kind of material. So I'm going to go back to hard plastic, rough, and I'll start out with maybe like let's start with a black color, and that looks good too. Okay, so now even though if I get up close to this area, you can see a little bit of that sculptural and painting chatter. But if I'm far away, everything looks really, really okay. And I'm good with that. And again, the drone is not really the subject matter here. The subject matter is the spinner. So this is just going to be something that's added onto it. Okay, so here, the last but not least, there's a couple of lights here. So I'll just go ahead and go to light. And we'll go ahead and pick an area light, like so, and we'll just drag a light over to here. So now we have this material as a light, right? And then you can see that it's showing through this material over here, and I don't want it to do that. So what I want to do here is I want to edit this material again and make sure that, well, first off, I want to make sure that this is not double-sided. So let's go ahead and edit that, make sure it's not double-sided. It looks okay. Apply to front of geometry, apply to back of geometry, no. Or was that the back? Okay, so let's do it this way. Okay, so that's good. So now that does not have it. So I'm just going to leave it at this. I'll just make this material less transparent. Okay, so there's the cloudiness. I'm going to bump that up to maybe 0.9. Let's see what that looks like. That's a little bit better, but the color is too light, so let's make it darker. There we go. All right, so now we basically have our drone pretty much the way we want it. And now we're going to add labels. And I kind of like these showing up. It adds a little bit of visual interest, but I can isolate it so it doesn't show up at all. And I think I did that last time, but let me try one more time. Visible in reflections, yes. Visible to camera, yes. Apply to back of geometry, no. Apply to front of geometry. Yeah, I don't know why I'm getting these little specks, but I'm just going to go ahead and turn both these on, which makes them go away. And so I'm happy with this. One other thing I want to do here is a transparency distance. I'm going to make that distance even shorter. Okay, so about there. Okay, and refractive index, I can maybe move that up. Here we go. Now I'm getting pretty much exactly what I want right here. Okay, so this is going to be the drone, and now let's go ahead and put some decals on. And I'm going to be basically doing the same process with the car. I'm not going to be dragging and dropping materials over and editing them because it's kind of boring, yeah. Okay, sound is good on Facebook. Is the image good on Facebook, Shibble? Lathe, is the video okay? There's one person saying it's blurry, but I don't know if he's still on or what the scoop is. All right, so there's quite a few people here, so I'm just kind of maybe not too many on Facebook. All right, so any questions so far about what I've been doing in Keyshot at all? Anybody have anything that you want me to explain further? So in retrospect, I probably would have colored these a different color, this area, maybe this little area over here. I'm assuming these are cameras and whatnot. Okay, so this is basically the drone, and let's go ahead and add some labels. Now, last time when I was adding labels, it was kind of problematic because I kind of couldn't figure out how to do it, but I remember there was a real easy way, and now I remember how it is done. And that's basically by dragging and dropping the labels on. So here I've just got a bunch of labels that I've made before, and what I'm going to do is just drag and drop them over onto the model and then start positioning them. So I've got one that's basically says sting, so I'll just drag and drop that over here, let go, and notice that as I let go it comes up and says, is this a transmission, bump, opacity, or label? So it's going to be a label, so there's the label and it's right there, and then I can just click on where I want that to go on the model. So I want it to go right here, and then I can rotate it to place it where I want it to go. So it's just going to go over there. Whoops. Just place it like so, rotate it, and let's agree with where that goes for now, and let's say that text goes over here. Now I don't have to have my model UV'd to do this, and let me move it again, just kind of adjust it a little bit. Like I said, I don't really need UVs to do this. I can just project it on. Notice here that if I look at the projection, it's planar, which is fine. And what I want to do here is just make sure a couple of things. One is I want to make sure that this isn't two-sided, right? Because I don't want to see it from the bottom. And so there it is, right? So there's one label. And then I want to put in another label that says open, which goes over on this one. Again, it's going to be label. It's too big. Oops, I think it went to the wrong place. Let's try this one more time. It's going to go over here as a label. So here, as I click on move texture, I can resize it to be smaller. I can move it to where I want it to go, rotate it, and place it like this. So this process is pretty nice if you just want to add some things to the surface of your model. You don't have to have UVs, like I said. You can just very easily go in and add these pieces or these decals to your model. And all you got to do is just drag and drop them from your OS. So here, I'm just going to move it a little bit more. Maybe have it be a little bit smaller and have it just go on top over there. The way to do this is just move the center to where you want it to be by clicking and dragging, and then you can just use this rotate, the green rotator, to get it to where you want it to be. Okay, so even though these two are using the same texture, notice that this isn't coming over to this one. So again, I want to make sure that this is not two-sided, so it's not showing up on the other side. And then I'm going to go ahead and drag another one of these over to here. Again, put it in as a label, resize it as well. There isn't symmetry for this, so you actually have to physically do it. I don't know where it moved to. Hello. Maybe let's try this again. That's that one. And I think I undid it by mistake, so I'll just do it again. Easy enough. There it is. Add label, resize it to about this size, and then you just click where you want it to go, and then rotate like this. Right, so I know this is not as ZBrush centric as most of the other episodes, but that's what happens when you're done in ZBrush and you want to start working on it in Keyshot. So this is going to be mostly a Keyshot type of episode. Okay, let me take a look and see if there are any questions. Yes, video is good too. Okay, Lath, thank you very much. Maybe that person didn't have good bandwidth, I don't know. But maybe they can watch it later on. If your video is not good and you're live stream, then you can always go back and watch this later. They'll be there from this point forward. Okay, so we have those open little decals. And notice they're really small, but they add a lot to the model. And then I want to put one over here. And let me see, I think this one right here, which is kind of a label, and just place that over where we want it. Let's go to move texture, maybe move it over to here like so, and then just rotate it into place. And there's that. Okay, so again, let's just make sure that it's not double-sided. just one side. And then you can do some certain things to this. And these are just basically images that I have saved. They are transparent in the background. So in Photoshop, and let me see if I can bring Photoshop up. And I'll show you how to make one of these. It's pretty easy. Wait a couple of seconds here for Photoshop to come up. And notice here that that texture is showing up a lot better as I'm closer to it. So here I can see that my drone has all the characteristics that I want. I could put some stuff on the bottom too. Maybe I will. But let's wait until Photoshop comes up. It's still coming up. And here on the bottom, I'll go ahead and put another decal while we're waiting for Photoshop to finish. So maybe, let me see. If you just excuse me for a minute here while I get Photoshop to do its thing. New, create new. And yep, that's good. Right, okay. And let's go ahead and add while we're at it, just let's go ahead and add a logo down here. So let's say there's a red dot that we are going to, did I choose the right one? Let me see. This one right here. I don't know if PSDs work. Let's see. I guess they do. All right, so I just added this red dot over here, and it's at the wrong place. So I'm going to add it to a different. I want to add it over here. And sorry, it's taking a minute, but it should be up here in just 1 second. Come on. I'll do it one more time. Add label. Did it do it? It did not. It added as diffuse. So I'm going to undo that one last time. Here we go. And don't want to do that either. Let's make sure it's on this part. Yep. And add label. There it is. Finally. Okay. And then we'll just zoom in on it. And let's say I want to put that there. That's good. And then just move it into place a little bit further down, like right about there. Okay, so there's that red dot on the bottom. Just a tiny bit more centered. All right, so there's that red dot. So you can see here, it's pretty easy to add these things to it. And let's say if I want to add a number to this, maybe it's number 54. I'll just go ahead and do that. Right here, add label. And by the way, I don't know if you noticed, but you can make these repeating. So if you want this to be on the entire bottom of the drone, you can just go down here to that label, and you can say I want it to be repeating vertically and horizontally. So now it's repeating all the way that way, but I don't think that's what we want. So we'll just keep it at that, and then just go ahead and resize it. To what size we want. Maybe that goes over here somewhere. All right, so it's number 54. Let's make sure it's one-sided so it doesn't show up on the other side. And yeah, we're good with that as well. Maybe nudge it a bit over this way. Oops. Yeah, notice that you can rotate it the other way too, and you don't want to do that. So make sure you don't click on the blue or the red rotation if you just want it to be on the surface. Here we go. So maybe it kind of shows up like that as a number. Okay, so now we've got that on. So yeah, this is what I meant about it showing up on the other side. So if you don't want that to happen, you just go ahead and click off two-sided here, and then that just basically puts it on one side. Okay, so here we go, and looks like the dot came up as well, but I kind of like it, so I'm going to leave it. So I didn't make the dot one-sided. It came up on the top as well, but it's a happy accident. I'm just going to leave it there. All right, so here we go. So that's basically it. And then you just start adding more and more, and then you're done with it. So there's our drone. I'll kind of pause for a minute here and take some questions, if any come up. Again, we have quite a few more people now. If anybody has any questions at this point, ask away. All right. Okay. I'm getting a question that says, why did I choose to make this part transparent? No reason. I mean, I just thought it kind of looked cool, kind of with this blurry material. If I had more time, I would maybe put some other thing inside here so it would show up, and it just creates more visual interest. Another thing I might also do is I sculpted these little things here for lights. I might just paint them differently and put different lights in there as well. And then if I have a scene where this thing is flying independently of the car, then it can do that. Okay, so now that I'm done with this, I just export it out. So here I'm basically done with it. I'll export this art. I'll save it as its own thing. So I'm just going to go ahead and save it as a drone. And I'm going to close the session of Keyshot, and I have another one open that has a spinner in it. Okay, so here, oh, I was going to show you how to make the decals in Photoshop. Let me do that first. Okay, so it's just a pretty straightforward process. So you just start out with something like this, let's say, just an image like that. And it usually comes up with a background color, which is white. So you just add another layer. Okay, so I've got another layer here, and oops, what? The music just started, that's weird. Okay. All right, so there's that layer, and what I did is I unlocked the background layer and deleted it. So I just have one layer here that's transparent. So in Photoshop, if you have these checker boxes, then you basically have it be transparent, and then just use like the text thing here, and this font is good. And let's say we want to make one that says caution. Okay, so there it is, and the color is white. We don't want it to be white, we want it to be black. So I'm just going to select this and choose it to be a black color. So, okay, and then once it's done, just Control T and resize it to whatever size you want. So now we have a caution stamp like this, and we'll use it later on. So here I'm just basically centering it in this. And here I don't really need all the space around it. So just to save a room, I can just go ahead and crop this down. Like so, and like so. All right, and then when you save this, make sure you save it as a PNG file, right? So when you save it, just make sure you choose PNG as your format. So here I'm just going to go ahead and save it out. And what we'll do is we'll use it on the spinner in a little bit. Any questions on this process? It's pretty straightforward. And then you can have all sorts of images. You can have all sorts of decals that you make, and then you can just put them on whenever you want to on your model. Here I'm just going to go to PNG and caution. All right. And I usually have it in white or black, and then you can switch it if you need to later on. Okay, so now let's go over to the other session of Keyshot. Okay, so here we have the spinner loaded in. I've got a scene, and I'll talk about all the different things that are here in a minute. So I'm just going to go do this for a minute because that's the animation thing, and click off pause here and go to performance mode. So in performance mode, you basically get a very kind of a rough render of your model, right? So here we just have this rough render, and I've got depth of field on. Let me go turn that off. The cameras in Keyshot, and I try to get as much of what I'm doing in Keyshot and then do very little Photoshop work afterwards. So here, let me just go ahead and make sure that my tablet is working. So we've got that going on. And you can see here I've got a whole city scene as well, and we're going to be rendering, doing a few renders of this pretty soon. But before we do that, let's bring in that new drone. So here, under the scene, I think this one is this drone, or maybe not. Maybe let me go ahead and look at all the different scenes that I have over here. So, and this is the model set 2, so let's hide that. And I think this drone came in from the previous one of the models. So you can see it's just one color here, and kind of looks, it looks okay, but it's kind of boring. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and find that. So again, naming things is a really good version. Let's see, looks like I've got a couple of questions. One question is, you know, how is this updating? It's just basically I'm using GPU for now because I've got a lot of textures here, and I don't really have that powerful of a GPU, not yet. But I can use GPU mode. We saw the drone in GPU mode. That was pretty fast, but I'm going to be doing this in CPU mode right now. The other question is what version of Keyshot I have, and this is Keyshot 9, right? So this is, let's see if there's an about here. Yep. Yeah, Keyshot 9, which is the newest version, and it's pretty amazing, especially the GPU mode. I've got some friends that have a couple of really fast GPUs in there, and this really screams with a bunch of GPUs. All right, so what we want to do here is we want to go ahead and import that other drone that we just saved. So let me see if I can find it here. It's under ZBrush streaming, Keyshot and drone, and let's open that up. Okay, so that drone is going to come in, and it's going to Keyshot's just going to put it somewhere, and it doesn't really matter, but I know it's going to come in the right scale because I did the scaling on it before. All right. So this is going to take a couple of seconds to set it up. And then once it's done, it's just going to add that as a model set. So while we're waiting, I'll see if there are any other questions. I've got one here that says, how did the spinner have all these different colors? So I basically did the dragging and dropping of materials to it, and I'll talk about that in a minute. As soon as this thing gets done. I don't know why this is taking so long. It shouldn't. It should be a lot faster. But it might be because I got a bunch of stuff open. So let me go ahead and close up Photoshop. And I think that should make things a lot better. I've got a bunch of stuff going on here. So here we go. Okay, so that drone came in, but it didn't replace the one that's here, and also it's somewhere else in my scene. So it's this new model set 3 is where it's at. So the first thing I got to do is hide this drone. So that's where the naming convention comes in handy, because here I can look through all these different names and find it, or I can just type drone here. Right? So if I can spell correctly. Okay, so here is the one that we have. So I'm going to hide these drones. So there it is. It's hidden now. And what I want to do is I want to, whoa, wait a minute. I didn't want to remove the sock. I just want to remove the drone. So that's hidden. Let's get rid of the search filter here. And we'll go ahead now and just bring in or find out where that other drone is. So here I'm just going to go ahead and go to View, Selection Outlines, and let's go to New Model Set 2 here, which I think is this one, right? And where is that drone? So it's over here. So we'll go ahead and go to Position, Move Tool, and let's move that over to where our spinner is. Okay, and just put it inside its little kind of area that it goes into. There it is. So this is the one that we did earlier. And it should have all the labels and everything. I don't see them, but I think it's because maybe I'm in performance mode. And here I just need to make sure I position it correctly into the car. So notice here again, I'm in performance mode, and this is where you want to do all the modeling and stuff. So you're not like cooking up your computer doing all this calculation for no reason, because all you're doing is because it's going to re-render every time you let go. So here I'm just kind of positioning the drone as to where it would go on the spinner. So it just kind of goes into this little area over here. And I think that's good enough from the top. Let's see how it looks from the side here. Yep, so it's always good to look at what you're doing from different angles just to make sure it's correct. So I think this kind of goes in a little bit more and also rotates a little bit more this way. Right, so now we've just basically housed our drone inside of the spinner. And I'm going to go ahead and do a quick jump out of performance mode just to see if the decals and everything we have show up. And there it is. Yep, they do. Or maybe they don't. What's going on here? It seems like, is this the right one? Yeah. Yeah, I don't know why the labels aren't showing up on this one. But I have another one here too, so let me just I think I zoomed out of into oblivion here, so let's just go to view and let's go to this. And when it gets into this mode, you just want to center to fit model. One of the other things I want to do is I've created a box here for atmospheric, so I'm going to go ahead and hide that so it doesn't for now. We'll bring it back up later. All right, so I think that's the cube over here, so let me hide that cube and we can just zoom in on specific part. The other thing also I need to do here is make my environment bigger. So here, where's the size? I'm going to make the environment maybe 200 feet, maybe 300. Yeah, that's good. All right, so let's zoom back in on the spinner here, and let's zoom back in on the drone. And it looks like it has the materials, but for some reason it does not have the labels, and I don't know why that is. But that's okay for now. I also have another one here. Let me see if I can bring that other one here. I've got another one called Model Set 2. Let me see if that one has it. And let's go ahead and pick Model Set 2 here. And there it is, and let's position that in place. All right, and this one is there too, but it's not visible. Let's make it visible. There it is. And did this one labels come through or not? It doesn't look like they came through, which is fine. What we can do is we can just add them again. So here I can just go ahead and yeah, that's pretty odd. All right, I'm going to bring in our latest one just because we spent all that time positioning and everything. So there it is. And what we'll do is we'll just add the labels over, and it's just as simple as this. We just go over here to the browse, looking at our browser here, and let's just go ahead and bring the sting over. Drop it as a label, resize it. And by the way, this will be a lot easier if I hide everything else over here. So I'm going to hide the city, and I guess maybe it's a good idea to add your labels in. And let's hide all the city parts. Okay. I'll leave those labels up. It doesn't really matter. Okay, so it's always good to hide everything else just to kind of make things a bit snappier. And here we'll just move it to where we want it to be, like right there, and resize it. I see some questions coming in. Give me a minute. Let me do this, and then I can answer them for you. All right. Questions. Looks like there's a bunch. Okay, cool. Javier, great. And then, okay, so one person is saying if we can have it in a different language. One of the things you might want to do is maybe watch this on YouTube later on. I don't know if they have a translator thing. One of the services should have some sort of translator thing, so you can find out more about it. It'll help translate it for you. And I think they do have some Spanish and maybe different language streams. You might want to look at those as well. Okay, so here we go. We are getting pretty, whoa, where'd it go? All right. I'm going to hide these labels here too. So all we've got is just the... So I'm basically seeing just the drone. And nothing else. Let's do this one more time. And there it is. Now you see it kind of doing this stuff, and maybe let me see if I can do this in performance mode. Yeah, it'll be a lot faster in performance mode. Okay. And then center camera to fit part. There we go. Okay, so this is exactly what I wanted. So now we go to that material here. And we go to the label, and we go to this label and click on it and position it. Okay, so from little Spanish that I know, it looks like Javier is saying it's easy to understand, Eric. Thank you, Javier. Yeah, I'm trying to be as simplistic about things as possible. Oh, man. Yeah, you can't undo this, by the way, so make sure you get it right, and then don't click anywhere else. Okay, so there's that. That's good. And then what we want to do is maybe do some of the other ones. I'm not going to do the open one, but I might do these decals real quick. And let's see if I can find them. There's this one right here. I'll just drag and drop it. Label, there it is. Too big. Of course, let's move it. Now remember, what you want to do always is also go in and make sure that you are making sure that you're turning off double-sided so this stuff doesn't show up on the bottom. So here I'm just going to go ahead and do that. Two-sided is off. Over here, let's zoom in. Okay, and I'm not really worrying about this kind of the look of it yet, because here all I'm doing is just placing these decals, right? And then we'll worry about the look once we get to it. And I'm just going to do these two for now and just leave it at that. So I think these are absolute. So wherever you add them, it will automatically, because I see that red one is still there, and the first one we placed is still there, but I think it has to do with some sort of where that model was initially. But here I'm just going to leave it at that. Notice that the sting is showing up on the back. So I'm going to go to, oops. I don't know what I just did there, but that's fine. And let's go ahead and edit this material and go to the material labels. And yeah, we don't want this to fuse at all, so let's unlink it. I'm just going to go to the material graph here and do it there. Looks like I added some other thing I didn't want. This thing over here. So you can see here in the graph, these are all the different things that we added to it. And these are all the different labels. And this one over here, we do not need. Okay, and I don't even think we need this whole thing at all. Okay. Graph editor is really powerful in Keyshot. I just want to let you know that. And so the only other thing we need to do is the sting over here is the thing we need to change. So I need to edit that material. I think that was the problem. And go to its labels. And I think it's this one right here. Or is it this one? Yep, it's this one. And I just want to make sure that double-sided is off, so it doesn't show up on the bottom. Or two-sided, not double-sided. All right. So now we've got our drone done. I think this is enough for the drone. And then let's bring the rest of the car back. So here is the car, or the spinner. And this is kind of a sad day to be doing this, because the person who came up with the original spinner, Sid Mead, passed away, I think last week or early this week. I'm not sure, but it's pretty sad. He did an amazing design, and that design will live on forever. And everybody who's making a spinner is basically doing things that he did. And in memory of Sid Mead, I made the color of the spinner Cherkov blue, which is kind of the color of, let me look that up and I can show you. It's interesting. I just saw this in an interview by him lately, and it's basically a in Chernobyl, when the thing exploded, it glowed this blue color. Cherkov blue. Let's see if yeah, it's this color, Cherenkov blue. It's this color right here, which basically is the color of a nuclear tube. So I basically picked this color to be the color of my spinner, just in remembrance of Sid Mead and the amazing stuff that he's given us as far as designs and whatnot. So here's a spinner, and basically I did the same exact thing that I did with the drone, where I basically just dragged and dropped different materials. So this material here, I'll go ahead and edit it, is just basically a metallic paint material, which comes in Keyshot. So if you go to materials here, and you go to paint, and scroll down, it is right here. It is, to expand it out, metallic paint, and there's classic and there is traditional, so you can choose whichever one you want. And then I basically dragged and dropped a material over, and then I started playing around with the material colors. And there's an eyedropper, so that's what I used to go and get that Cherkov blue to add it to the color of the spinner. The glass is just glass material. All the lights are just a light material. So here are the light materials, and I usually use area lights and then tweak them. So I've got a blue one and a red one over here. I've got just a white one over here, and I can just adjust the brightness of the light. So here, let me edit this light right here, edit material. And you can see that, you can put in the lumens or watts or lux, whatever kind of thing you want, and you can just pump up the power. This one looks a little too bright for me, so I'm going to go ahead and reduce it to maybe, let's say that. Okay, so then that basically creates the lights. And I went in and I just colored every single thing. The inside part, the guy and the chairs and whatnot, I didn't really color them. I guess I can do a chair now, why not? So here I'm just going to go into the scene here, and I'm going to hide the model sets and just scroll down to where the seats are. So notice here it's easy for me to find it. I'm skipping by all the externals and going to internal here, and there's the body and the head, and then there's the seats. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to select this one. So this is the back of the seat, and keep selecting. So this is the headrests. So if I want to assign a material to those headrests, now that they're selected over here, I can just drag the material over to that. Now I can drag the material over to it in the viewport, but the glass is in the way. So the glass is going to get that material. So for here, I'm going to go ahead and go into, let's say, let's see if I can find a cloth or something like that. I think there's leather as well. Let me just type this in, leather. And Okay, and there's some leather materials, so I'll go ahead and pick one. It doesn't, again, the color doesn't matter because I can change it, so maybe I can choose this leather material, which really isn't that much different than what we had. But let me go ahead and edit that material. Okay, so there it is, and it looks like the chair kind of got that materials. And what I want to do here is maybe play around with the diffuse of it. Let's see here. So there's the diffuse, and diffuse is coming from two different colors. Let's see if red works. Red is always good. Or let's try and use a dark blue. Maybe that's better. That looks good. Okay, so I've got that dark blue leather there. I like it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go, whoa, what happened? Did I undo it? It did undo it. Okay, no worries. We can do it over. There we go. I want it to be a little bit darker. Like that. Okay, accept it. So there is that. And now what I want to do is copy that material. And then let's go and see what different parts of this head seat can have that. So let's paste it here. Paste material. So this back part's going to have that material as well. You can barely see it, but it's there. And then let's go down to here. Make that part have that material. Sure. Material, paste material. So that's that center part of the chair. And let me just move this over. And we're just basically seeing this inside of the spinner. And there it is. And let's see what other parts we can add this to. That part we'll leave it as is. That part we'll leave it as is. Maybe this part. Leave that one as is. I want that middle part as the last part. Maybe the seats also. Okay, so there's that. Material, paste material. And I could paste link those materials. I should have done that, but it's fine. And then last but not least, this piece right here, material, paste material. Okay, so there's that. So now I've got kind of these leather seats showing through. And for the guy, I just basically left him as kind of a silhouette. So he's just got like a black plastic material. And notice here I've added light materials to the dashboard here. So these are just light materials that I use. So just in here, I chose light as the material and dragged them over into that. And I could make those different colors too. So here, let me see if this works. Nope. Let me cancel to save. And also, let me reduce this animation area so we get more of what we see over here. Okay, so, and then I just want to move to where the dashboard parts are again. So again, with the naming, I can go to where it says internal, and maybe it's under lights, headlights. Okay, no, it's under the internal part. Divider dash center. Nope. Let's see here. I'll find it. I forget what I called it. So I notice here for the car paint, I have car paint, floor dash, and all that stuff. But I should have, maybe it's under dash gun sight. These are these little boxes, and divider center, no. Let me see if I got other dash stuff. Maybe I'll just type in dash, see if that comes up. Okay, so there's this one, this one, this one. There's that display, and then, I don't know, I guess I didn't call, yeah, here we go, these ones. So suppose I want these ones to be a different color, so I'll just go to material here, edit material, and maybe these are kind of a reddish color. Right, so we'll just make them more of a reddish color like this. And remember, you know, when a light shines, it changes the color a little bit. So maybe try and see if I can find something more like that. All right, so that's good. And now I've got some colors on the inside that are a little bit different. And so that's basically the same process I did for all these. So let's add some more decals to the car here. I'm going to go back to performance mode. And let's add some decals to the outside of the car. So now I've got some LAPD logos that I made. Start out with this one right there. Add label. There it is. And then make it bigger. Move it to where we want it to be. Oops. Let's do that one more time. Actually, I'm going to try this other label that I have. I like this one a little bit more. It looks a bit more futuristic. And let's move that to where we want it to be. Rotate it. Make sure it's not double-sided. And the other thing I can do is I can choose the type of material. I want this to be metallic, so I want this to be metal LAPD like that. And I want it to be bigger, like so. Just rotate it on the surface. And here I want to look at the camera on the side, so here I'm just going to go and choose a side camera. Let's see if this works. It does, but I moved my thing. Okay, so this is looking at it from the side, and I want the LAPD to go right there. And notice it's reflective, so it's kind of cool. And let's edit the material of it. Okay, so there's the label material, and it's metal. Let's see some other ones here. Let's see what plastic looks like. No, plastic doesn't look interesting. How about if we choose paint? No, I think metal looks really cool. There's nothing like metal text on a door. Okay, so there's that, LAPD, and then let's add some other textures here. That might be interesting. Other decals, and maybe this one right here, which is like some sort of a badge of some sort. Oh, this has LAPD in it as well. Maybe we don't want that. How about maybe something like this? It's going to be a label as well. And maybe this goes over here like that. And let's make sure it's not double-sided so it doesn't show on the other side. There it is. Okay, so that looks good. Let's just go ahead and accept it. Okay, oops. Needs to be rotated just a little bit. So it's just really kind of an easy, quick way of doing labels and whatnot without having to have UVs. And unless you really wanted to load this into Substance Painter and whatnot, you don't really need UVs. And if you guys are interested in how UVs work, I highly recommend you look at the Gnomon Workshop. That model I completely UV'd 100%, all in ZBrush. And so that's a good way to find out about it. Here I'm going to put a decal on the glass. And I'm going to put one of these guys on. Let's see, this one right here. So I'm going to drag and drop this to the glass itself. Why does it say set backplate? I don't want to do that. Okay, so let me just move this over. And let go, label. So now this is on the glass itself, right? And notice here that you can kind of see that the glass has thickness. And also that this is going through, but I don't want it to do that. So first things first, let me go ahead and make this single, not two-sided, so just one-sided. So do that. Okay, and then let's move it. I guess that does go through, which is fine. And let's move it, rotate it, make it a lot smaller. Just put it maybe down here. Let's see what it looks like. Oops. I think that's the trick, is you got to kind of accept this and then move your car. That looks okay, but I don't know. I don't want it there. Maybe do the black version of it and put it on this one right here. That label, there it is, right there. And let's accept that. Right, so we have a little bit of a label on here, and I can add some other things to this. So here's one that kind of looks interesting. So basically at this point you're just playing around, figuring out what looks good, what doesn't look good. Here's this one. I'll add it as a label to the car as well. One more time. Label, there it is. And did I just land that exactly where I wanted it? Sometimes you get lucky. Yep, that looks good. Maybe right there, and just a tiny bit of rotation, and that's good. So you just basically go in and add different things like this to your car to make it a little bit more interesting. I'll go ahead and add a yellow band because it'll be cool because I can show you another thing that I do here. So I'm just going to add a yellow band like this as a label. And let's move this thing, make it much bigger. And let's move it on the surface to about there. Now notice here that the label is covering the car or the LAPD, and I don't want it to do that. So if I want it to not do that, what I need to do is I need to order these separately. So notice here that this is the order of the labels. I'm just going to move this label down so it's below LAPD, and the LAPD comes up over it like that. Okay, so that's what I want. And it looks like it's flowing over to these other things because probably the material is linked, right? So what I want to do here is edit some this a little bit more to make it not be so tall. So let's see if we can do that. Make it a lot shorter, thinner, and move it over to here like this. Okay, so that's looking a lot better. And I just want to make sure it's not on the other side. So, you know, little by little, I just kind of start adding different things. I'll see if this is better diagonal or if it's better the way it is. Let's try it out. It's like putting stuff on a race car. Actually, I liked it better just like that. Can I make it thicker? Oops. Yeah, see with the resize, you can adjust if you do the visible way, you can just do it that way. But I think there's a way you can also just resize the... maybe not. No, I guess you can't just do different resizings of these things. But that's fine. This is looking okay. Like about there. Okay. It's kind of bleeding over some other areas as well. Oh, it looks cool in the bottom. Maybe I'll just add it on the bottom. Like that. All right, we're not going to see that part, but that kind of looks really neat. Kind of the glass breaking it up like that. Happy accident there. And it also is bleeding some of it to the top. That's because it's two-sided, and now that's gone. So we are good with that. Maybe we can put in that caution thing that we did. Maybe we can put that over here. So that's right here. Just bring that over. Label. Oh, where'd it go? Do that one more time over here and let go, add label, make sure that it is not two-sided, and then just kind of move it to where we want it. So this is kind of an intake, so we just want to say caution around it, like so. Now here's another thing too. What you can do is I want this to be white because it's black right now. And so I could either go in and create a white one in Photoshop, or I think there's a way to invert this too. Let me see if I remember how to do it. Okay, so here I'm just going to bring up, the material graph. And here it is. And what I'm going to do here is just add an invert node in the middle. So here under utilities, there is a color invert. So I'll just add that and just drive this to the color invert and drive this down to the diffuse. So now it's white, and it's exactly what I want, so that's cool. And what I want to do is put one of these on the other side, right? So I'll just drag and drop it. Nope, add it as a background, which is not what I want. I want to add it to here as a label. Resize, rotate, and let's see how big was this one. Yeah, I want it to be about the same size. Of course, I could have used the exact same one and dragged it over to this material in the material editor, but this is fast enough just to do it this way. Right, so caution goes there like that. And same thing I will do is go to the material graph, and let's go ahead and make this bigger so you guys can see. And this is taking a minute to figure things out, but looks like there's a bunch of questions. Let me see if I can answer those while this figures itself out. Hopefully it's not going to crash. Okay, is not familiar. Okay. Oh, Stadius, this is Keyshot 9. Nuck, yes, I am still on this car, but this is the last episode. So from this point forward, we're not going to be on this car. Actually, I'm going to be off until April. So I'll come back in April with something new. All right, so that's now changed to white as well. Okay, so now we basically, I think we have enough decals. Maybe I'm going to put another LAPD one up here, and then that will call it a day. So for this one, I'm just going to use a white version of what I had before. Here, label, and that came in pretty perfect. I shouldn't have touched it. Okay, here we go, and we're going to make that metallic as well. And also make it single-sided so it doesn't show up on the bottom. But I do want to put one on the bottom also just for kicks. And that one I'm going to make black. Just drag and drop it this way, add label, and flip it around so it says LAPD on the bottom. And notice that this one I'm going to put on top of that yellow band so it stands out. All right. And the funny thing is I'll probably be working on this car for a long time. I'll probably be adding more and more to it and doing different renders of it. So now we basically have the car as we wanted. I brought in some city pieces, and these are just from Kit Bash parts. So I'll just go ahead and turn those on. Let's go ahead and turn this thing off. And also let's turn off performance mode. So here is just the car rendering. We'll let it do a quick render here and just let it cook for a little bit. And so I'll just wait a few minutes until it kind of looks a little bit better. Notice that this caution here, I didn't do the double-sided, so it's showing up. Let me fix that real quick. I think it's in this model set, so let me go to it. It's under here, it's under ZBrush. Oh, that's right, got this on. Okay, here we go. And edit material and labels. And it's, I think, this one right here. To the material graph, and I think it's this one. Let me use my mouse to select it. Where are you? Here you are. Okay, that's that, that's that. And let's go over to it. And one of these two has the two-sided on. I don't know why I'm not getting to it. Let me try this one more time. I think I've selected a different part here. Edit material. Here we go. Here we go. There's that. Caution.png. Let's go to that. And two-sided. There we go. Okay. So we've got about half an hour left, and so this is going to be a lot of fun to kind of create some sort of interesting scene to have this in. So let's go ahead and turn on these city pieces. And so these city pieces, and you kind of see them in the way they are right now. They're blurry, And that's because I did motion blur. So basically that's done with the animation capabilities in Keyshot. So what I did is I basically moved the entire city from here to here. So as I move it over to here and let go, and I have motion blur on, this is the motion blur option right here. What that will do is it will blur the city so that the city looks like it's moving, but the car is still. And then the other thing that I also have are these banners. So I'll go ahead and turn those on. And I've just applied decals to these banners. So they're just basically light banners that are going through. So there's the car and there's the light banners. And now I'm just basically trying to find a good angle for the car. Maybe we can have one that looks like this. That looks good. So I'll just let it cook for a while. Like so. So this is a pretty complex scene. So it's going to take a little bit of while to cook. So here I can just go to interior mode. It'll be a little bit faster. If I go to product mode, it'll be a little bit faster as well. So I'm just going to go to what I had before, which is, let's just choose interior here. And I'm also going to turn on denoise, which will take out some of the noise that we have. So this will make it kind of look more or less like the one we have. So that looks good, like maybe like this. Okay, let go, wait a few minutes. And then Keyshot gives me a good render, and then we can take a screenshot of that. Every time I do a screenshot, by the way, a camera is saved. So then I basically have a bunch of different cameras that I can go back to. So here's another one. That's kind of cool. So we'll let that cook for a few minutes. Right, and then I basically just create a bunch of sets like this, and then I spend the time to render them. And I have a bunch that I will show you. So here's one view like this, and do a close-up. Maybe we can do one like the Sid Mead version that he had of the spinner, which is going to be something like this. Right, so we'll just have kind of a side view as it's flying over the city. Let go. I think the blur is not as strong as I'd like, but maybe that's because, am I in, no, I'm not in performance mode. Okay, so there's the car. Let's make it bigger. At this point, I'm just basically like a photographer taking a picture of the car. I'm just moving exactly to where I want, and then I can just let it cook. Yeah, Keyshot is really great. Keyshot is basically a rendering software that, and I'll show you guys a little bit about it. So if you just Google Keyshot, right, caps lock is on. Okay, so keyshot.com. This is the software. And it does some amazing stuff. So you can get some amazing, if you go to the gallery here, you can take a look at the different stuff that they have for it. So, you know, it's really great. You can do all sorts of really cool renders, but it's kind of expensive, right? So if you go to buy it, you notice here that it's pretty expensive. However, for ZBrush users, you can get Keyshot for ZBrush, and it's significantly less. But you can only use it with ZBrush. So here's that, Keyshot for ZBrush. It's still, you know, it's still not super cheap. But you can see here for $149, you can get it for ZBrush. But then it'll only work for ZBrush. It won't work for other things like CAD programs and whatnot, which is fine. I mean, you probably only need it for ZBrush anyway. So here I'm going to turn denoise off, and you can see here the car paint is coming through. You can kind of see a little bit of the shininess of the car material. And the longer you wait, this gets better and better and better. And if you want to render it, you can just go to render and choose, you know, what resolution you want. You can choose different render passes and whatnot, and just go ahead and render it that way. So I'm still kind of perplexed as to why. Oh, I turned motion blur off. That's why. Here we go. Now that motion blur is on, it's going to re-render. And you can see that kind of this looks fuzzy in the back. That looks like it's moving, and the car looks like it's not. So I'm going to wait until this basically... oh, how did I get the particle effect? Well, so I don't even have the particle effect yet. So the particle effect you're seeing is the noise. So when Keyshot renders, it does it little by little by little by little. And if I turn denoise on, then a lot of those particles will go away. The particles that you see in the car paint are just basically the car paint material. So I'll go to that material here. And you can see here that there is metal coverage, metal roughness. But then you also have clear coat thickness and clear coat roughness and all that stuff. So you can modify all these different things. But also, I think there is a place where you can choose the size of the, see if it's under here. The car paint usually has, yeah, here we go. The metal flakes, the little metal flakes, you can choose the size of them. So you can choose them to be bigger. And you can choose their visibility. So here I've got very tiny, tiny ones. So 0.001 maybe. So you have very tiny metal flakes in the paint, and that shows up in here as well. It looks like my bottom LAPD is also not double-sided, but it's adding this really interesting thing over here. I'll just leave it there. And also it looks like I've got my other drone showing up too, so I'll go and hide that. Over here, I think it's under model sets. And let's see, which one is this one? Yeah, I want this one to show up. I just don't want the other one to show up, so let me go hide the other one. And I think here, drone. And I think it's this one right here. I don't want to show that one. There we go. Also, it looks like this one kind of moved up a bit, and I don't know why. That's fine. I can move it back. I think it's this one right here. Position, move tool. And let's move it down. Usually you want to do this in performance mode, but here I think I can just basically nail it with maybe one or two. Nope, I got to go to performance mode, do it there, get it to where I want it to be. Oops. I think maybe I have some animation on it as well. Do I? I don't. All right, so let's pretend the drone is flying off of the car. And let's see what that looks like. Right, one more and get straight. Okay, so now we have the car and we have the drone flying off of it. Let's get a good camera angle and let's turn off performance mode and let it cook for a while. Like so. And here I can probably add a little bit of a different animation to the drone and give it a different motion blur as well. So here maybe it took off and it's flying in front of the spinner. So there we go. Actually, I think compositionally it would look better if it was back here because the gray background would work better for it. So here, let's zoom in. So here the drone is coming in to land onto the spinner, like so. All right, so right now, that's how I'm getting the particles, is basically just surface noise. And if I denoise it, some of it will go away. And this will cook. The particles in the paint are coming from the flakes in the paint, right? And the other question that you had is, if I want to get more atmosphere, and I do have that as well. And I was able to do that with this thing right here. So I just basically put in a box around just a regular cube around the city, and then I basically applied a scattering material. So the scatter materials are, I think, under materials here. If you scroll down, there are scatter materials, and it's called scattering medium. And there, if you click on those, there are ones that are fog. And there's all a bunch of different ones you can use. So I just basically put a scattering material on here. And let me turn the denoiser off. And that creates kind of like that hazy feeling. So that's how I did that, Dan. That's how I added the hazy material to it. All right, so it looks like we got 15 minutes left. So in those 15 minutes, what I will do is just find some different looks here and let the renderer cook for a while and then just do screenshots. And then I can go to those camera angles and do renders from them as well. A couple other things you can do to make your image look better is go to image here and under bloom, you can increase the bloom, and that kind of creates this bloom around the lights. So it creates kind of an interesting kind of fuzzy look around the lights of your model. And you can also use chromatic aberration that creates kind of a little bit of a camera thing. Last but not least, you can also add a depth of field, which looks really good. So I'm going to turn that on. And for depth of field, you basically need to choose a close point and a far point, and that will add kind of a depth of field look to it. I can't do that with the box that's over here, unfortunately, so I will turn that off. And I either can turn the box off and do it, and then turn the box back on for the haze, or I can just turn depth of field off, which I'll do. All right, so I'm going to turn the music back on here because there isn't really much more to say. We're just going to be rendering some scenes. And after we're done, in about maybe about 14 minutes or so, we'll have a bunch of rendered scenes, and then I'll render these better. And I'm going to go ahead and create a ZBrush Central post and put all the stuff that we did, the videos and whatnot, on there. And I also will have the final renders on there as well. I might add some more decals and do some more tweaking of the spinner, but basically at this point I am finished with the modeling, and I might do a little bit more look dev, maybe have some different colored versions of it, and call it a day. So I'm going to turn the music back on. And just do some renders. This is the most fun part, by the way. All the work basically comes down to these moments. Hey Javier, I don't know what you mean by who is. So here you guys can see the box that's outside. That's the haze box. And then the environment is just the sun and sky. And the city pieces are just kit bash parts. Thanks, Render Migon. I appreciate it. Javier, you're asking if I can apply smoke. Yeah, I can. All I need to do is use the same scattering material, but attach a fractal noise to it, and you can have smoke. You can have all different kinds of materials. But probably smoke is easier to add in Photoshop afterwards. So I probably would add smoke in Photoshop. But the haze is kind of nice because it gives it a nice depth feeling. Gives a nice depth feeling to the model. So. But yeah, if you look up Keyshot and smoke, there's plenty of tutorials on it. Yeah, the kit bash mindset is pretty good. You can get away with a lot of cool stuff with not having to model them yourself. It definitely is worth it. Here's kind of a really cool view. You can see the front part of the car, which I like. I think the feature I like the most is this kind of front part. So every single snapshot that I do basically is saving a camera. And then after I'm done with this, I'll save it, and then I can go in and go to those individual cameras here. So here's this camera, here's this camera. So I can just go to all the different cameras and render those out and basically leave them overnight or whatever, however long it takes for it to kind of do that final render. All right, so who is Javier? I still don't understand, like PNG. I still don't understand what you're saying. If you can explain better, I'll be more than happy to answer your question. But yeah, this part is fun. It really is. Oh, the smoke. Yeah, you can add it. Yeah, you can add a PNG as a smoke. You can bring in a PNG with a transparency and just add it. There's plenty of them online. You can even have a Photoshop brush that's smoke, and you can add it afterwards to the image as well. The thing is, if you're going to do that, when you go to render, make sure that you render the clown pass. And what the clown pass will do is it will give you an outline for all the different parts, and one of the, of course, parts is the background. So then you'll have a mask for the background. So you mask out everything else, and then you just add the smoke to it, and it looks really good. So yeah. Now, as a treat, as we're kind of winding down, we've got 5 minutes left here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open up another session of Keyshot, and I'll load that mech in. That I also did in my Instagram, this thing right here. Right, this thing, I'll load this model so you guys can look at it too. And by the way, if you guys don't mind, if you go to my Instagram and put a like on this, that would be great. I got 122 likes in 2 days. That's good, but I'd like to lift those numbers up. So if you guys could do that, I would greatly appreciate it. All right, so I'll go ahead and load that, and you guys can see what that looks like. me go back to this so you guys could see it. So if you just wait a little bit longer, the more you wait, the clearer this picture becomes. So I'll just let it, this is a good kind of way to end this thing. So we'll just leave it at that. And then we'll go ahead and load this up so you guys could see that as well. That's what I wanted. Let me just do this. So you can see here it's kind of resolving pretty nicely. And I made the background less busy and kind of drab colors because I just wanted the car to kind of shine through. So, and on the other screen that I have, I'm waiting for Keyshot to load up. In the meantime, let's see if there's any questions. Yeah, seam and smoke, all that kind of stuff. You can do that in Keyshot. You just have to use the scattering material and then use alphas to kind of create that look. But it's not, it doesn't have dynamics or anything like that. So you can also load in VDBs, like clouds or whatever, and you can assign it to the scattering material. It looks pretty good with that too. It's taking a while to load the mech in. It's a lot of different pieces. It says it's 99% done, but I don't know if it's going to start over. Yeah, it started over. All right. And this is the thing that it's a tutorial that I went through on the Gnomon Workshop and did. That's this thing right here that I'm going to show you guys next. So it's this mech right here, and you'll see it in Keyshot. I'll rotate around it so you guys can see the whole thing. It's probably not going to render as fast. Maybe actually it renders a lot faster than this. But yeah, it's taking its sweet time loading. I think at this point I'm really taxing my machine to the fullest. All right, well, I think this is pretty much here. I'll go ahead and do one more view of this while that's happening. Do one from the top. Oops. Let's bring this back. Here we go. This other Keyshot scene is taking forever to load. I don't know why. There we go. All right, you guys ready? Here's this one. Let me do something here real quick. So here is that mech. Bring up this. Can you manipulate the lights? Or yeah, you can. Yeah, you can totally. I know, right? Like, look at how much I pushed everything today. So I've got basically ZBrush loaded, and I've got these two things loaded. Is this in performance mode? No, it's not. So here we go. This is what the mech looks like. And manipulating lights is pretty easy. So you first of all, you have the lights that are in here. So let me turn depth of field off here. Right, so they're the lights on the mech itself, right? those are basically just a light material, and you can choose how strong they are and all that good stuff. But also, if you want to manipulate the outside lights, that's easy enough to do too. You just go to Environment, and you basically can add them in as pins, right? So here we go. Here's another light, and I can move it around. Right now I've got the background as my, maybe I should change that. Hang on. So let's change it to a color. Here we go. And now as I'm moving the light on the object, I can either move it in the environment here, or I can actually point and say I want a light to shine on this area. So now there's a light shining on that area. And then you can choose how bright that light is. So let's say you want to make that like super bright. There, well, that's too much. Maybe 2. Right, so I got a really bright light, and I can also choose the color of that light. So not that, but let's go to this light here. And this maybe is going to be a red light, right? Or maybe orange light like that. Okay, and I want the orange light to shine on the front of that mech, and now I've got a orange light shining to the front of it. So yeah, Keyshot is really powerful. You can do some amazing stuff with Keyshot, with lights, with textures, with materials and whatnot. So it's kind of my renderer of choice. It's usually where I start. I'm starting to use Octane a little bit too, but if I'm really my go-to renderer is definitely Keyshot, because it's just really fast to get what you want done. I don't do any other streaming besides the Pixologic at this time. I might do some in the future, but for now, it's just kind of my little kind of break from life every Friday. But next in April, I probably won't be able to do Friday because I'm teaching Friday and Thursday nights, so I won't be able to do them then. So it'll probably be either a Saturday or a Sunday for my next streams, maybe a weekday as well. I don't know yet. But anyway, so here's this mech as well, and go ahead and pause this, and we'll go back to the spinner in the back, and basically this was our project for this episode, and the next series we'll do, the next season, I'll pick a different topic. Maybe I will go ahead and do some sort of a poll, online poll, to see what you guys want to see, and we'll do that as kind of the subject matter. But I think we've kind of gotten to the end of our time here, and so if you guys have any last minute questions, this would be the time to ask. And otherwise, if you are watching this afterwards, please get a hold of me afterwards if you want, and ask me whatever questions you had. And otherwise, I will see you all in April, hopefully. So happy New Year, everybody. Happy 2020, and happy ZBrushing. And thanks for watching, and have a great rest of your day or night. Bye-bye.